Hey guys, welcome back. Today I am going to be throwing some paint on Agent Venom, and of course he has been primed by Ben. I am going to try something I haven't done before, so we'll see how that goes. And these are all the paints that I use, which are obviously mostly Citadel Contrast. There is a P3 paint and then a Speed Paint Medium. I don't actually use that, even though I should have. And of course, Agent Venom is primed with Citadel color Wraithbone. So let's get into it. So the first color that we're using is Lothern Blue. Hopefully I am saying that right, but that's how I'm gonna say it. So this is the new thing that I wanted to try. So I feel like black is actually kind of difficult to make look good, especially if you're not great at highlighting or edge highlighting like I'm not. And so my thought process is, what if I do almost like the Zenithal priming highlighting method, but with the typical highlight color for black, which is blue. So I know I'm going pretty heavy on the dry brushing on this, but I really did want to make sure that this blue popped through the contrast black that I end up putting over top. So the next color is Contrast Black Templar. And while I do feel that this method worked for me in my painting style, looking back on it now, this is actually where I should have done something a little bit different. So using this method in the future, I will definitely be using the contrast or the speed paint medium to thin this black down just a bit so that the blue that I put underneath can actually pop through even more. I think if I do that, then I won't have to dry brush highlight like I do later on. I am still super happy with how Agent Venom turned out, but if I can save a step and a couple of extra minutes, I will definitely try. I've also found that I can be a little messy with the first few main colors most of the time because it's easier and faster for me to go back in later with white to clean it up before I move on, as opposed to taking forever to be meticulous and not getting any color where it shouldn't be. So that's why, you see, I'm kind of like being quick with it, being a little bit messy, but that's okay. Paint is forgiving, and white definitely helps cover that stuff up. So next we are going in with the P3 color Signar Blue, and that's just because that black contrast didn't let the blue that I originally put down, didn't let that really pop through as much as I wanted. Like I said, I'd have to thin that out next time. So I'm deciding to go in with some highlighting, starting with a little bit of a darker blue, and then I do a couple more layers actually after, just adding a little bit of white every time. Alright, so we have added a little bit of white to that blue, and now we're hitting mainly the top and front of Agent Venom. And yeah, there's a lot of blue all over my fingers. Don't ask me how, but I dumped half of that P3 bottle all over my dining room floor. And one more dry brush with a little bit of a lighter blue, and I'm focusing mainly on the tendrils this time, just to make them really stand out just a little bit from the rest of Agent Venom. Okay, so now that Agent Venom's body is mostly done except for a few details, I'm going in and cleaning up the rest of the model with that Corax white. So after I clean up the stone bit that he's on, I kind of start in on the guns, but I do end up actually finishing those off screen just because I really needed that close to my face. I didn't want to get any white on the tendrils because I can't really go back and start that over. So I need to be super careful on that. I also ended up doing that with his eyes as well, because even though they're bigger eyes, and I'm not good at eyes, but even though those are bigger eyes, they needed to be perfect. And then the spider on the front and back of him, I did struggle with that just a little bit. Mainly the spider legs though, that wrapped around the sides. I can't seem to find my tiny brush, honestly. My detail brush, no idea where that is. So although one of the spider legs, although it's a little bit thicker, I can always go back in later with my detail brush when I do find it to clean it up. Next up is some Iron Hands steel for his 3 guns and the fencing that he's jumping over. Although, once again, I did not do that on camera, but that was actually an accident. I thought I was done and then I noticed I hadn't done it, and I did it off camera. So for the stone wall that Agent Venom is like jumping over, I did kind of do a homebrew. It's the Skeleton Horde and Basilicanum Gray. It's probably a 4-to-1, mostly Skeleton Horde with like a little bit of the gray. Probably 4-to-1. It could be 5-to-1, honestly. I didn't really like keep a formula. I knew that I wanted like a tan-ish kind of stone, but I knew I didn't want just the Skeleton Horde or brown or any like normal color, so I thought let's just add some gray to darken it up a bit, and it came out great. For the rocks, I just added some white to that previous color I had to give me almost like this muddy color. For the basing, I'm going in with the Basilicanum Gray, and honestly, most of our MCP models actually have this gray as their basing. I just like being consistent. Now that the guns and the fencing have dried, I'm going in with some Nuln Oil, really making sure to get into the nooks and crannies so that you can really see the details of the guns and fencing, as opposed to just throwing a bunch of Nuln Oil on them and then they just kind of look like dull silver. I did actually used to be pretty careless with shades. I just kind of like throw it, glob it on there and let it pull wherever. But what I've come to realize about them is that while you can and should use them generously, you should also just be intentional with where you put it. To really make these rocks stand out, I'm going in with some white, but also using a little bit of fresh water from my paint cup to move that paint around just a little bit before it dries. It also ends up giving it like a transparent milky kind of color that ends up allowing the brownish gray that's underneath to show through, mainly in the recesses. Last but certainly not least, make your model stand out from the table by painting the rim. I've seen people do purple, red, whatever color they want, even different colors according to the paint schemes they have for different affiliations. Personally, I just like black, so 2 quick coats of this and we're done. And that is a finished Agent Venom. He took about an hour and a half to paint, which is relatively quick, and it was honestly such a fun learning experience. I hope that my simple painting style and looking for shortcuts was helpful to you. And remember, here at Married Couple Protocol, we love you.